Just so you know, I mean, when people rip these videos, they usually slice off the dates and try and pass them off as current, even a year from now, right? Anyway, so today we're going to discuss death and aliens, two really fun subjects. So it's rainy and nasty out there. Let me, no, that's the lights would be reflecting. Anyway, so I've got this video is basically to get a bunch of people off my case about telling them what I'm taking, okay? And what they're referring to is I'm better, I look a lot more fit than I did when I died in 2018 of cancer. I've really come back, and I'm still in the process. This is a multi-year process. I'm in the 6th year of recovery from dying of colon cancer and having a great surgery and big hunks of my guts taken out, that sort of thing. In order to look as fit as I am looking required a lot of work, okay? So I get people that send me emails saying, hey, what are you taking, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I can't really do that. I can tell you what I'm taking, but it's going to be dangerous for you, and you don't want to just have this knowledge and go take this shit expecting a certain level of results, because you need to know why you're taking it and what it's going to do, and how long to take it, etc., and what to take it in combination with. It's very complicated. What we're looking at is a process. This process is Hindu in origin or Indian. It actually originated in the Caucasus Mountains, it is believed, and then came down the mountains and cut over into central India. And from there it flourished, okay, because it was adopted by the yogis as being something worthwhile. And this process is this Kailasha Anta, which means end of time. It means end of time, okay? Kaila in Sanskrit is time. A very particular kind of understanding of the word time. From this, so the end of time process is very voluminous when you really get into understanding what you're looking at here, and it's systematized, and I think it goes back maybe 5 or 6 or 7,000 years to when they had the leisure to sit there and go through all of this stuff, systematize it, and develop it, okay? And maybe they inherited it from a previous, more aware civilization. Anyway, it is a process. And within that process, there are other subsets. I'm using some of those other subsets, okay? This whole end of time process involves meditation. It involves really esoteric stuff. I mean, really esoteric stuff that most people would just say, what the fuck? Anyway, so within that is this death of all deaths. This Marana, okay? That's death of deaths. With the S-Y-A on there, it means all deaths, the ultimate all deaths, right? Killing off all deaths. So at this level, you actually, within that part of the process, at this level, you get people that do some really pretty strange things in terms of what they do to their bodies. And it also leads over to Sokyu Shinbutsu, which is the Japanese Buddhist process that derives from this Hindu process, but these people went and took it into an extreme level, and it's like self-mummification. You do all this stuff to basically shrink yourself down to those essence of cells, and then you die. And you leave behind a perfectly preserved mummy that's never been treated, right? Has no tannins or any of the other stuff put in it to preserve the body. You do it that way in the process of dying. There's also now, in the Hindu side of that, are the people that shrink their body down, and then they put them into a basically kind of a crate at the very end of their life. You've got to do it before they die, this part of the process. And then they take a pure copper rod with a big point on the end of it and drive it right down through their spine. And it frees kills them, obviously, but it frees their vibration. The they think, they're assuming, from recycling into another birth. It doesn't work that way. They're going to be quite shocked when they actually do die and going up and find out that they're only one of 12 doers in the body for that being. For this being, we're only 1/12. So it's going to be kind of a shock for them. Anyway, okay, so what I am doing is this process here. Okay, it's the little version of this. It's not this big thing ending up with trying to fix my vibrations in place in a particular spot in universe or anything. None of that level of esoteric stuff that you get up in here. Okay, so I'm doing this death of deaths, lowercase, right? Lowercase d. So just so we're sure about this. So it's meaningful because this is all within the body, and all up in here is mostly not. This is analogous to this process here. Kayak kalpa, okay? The kal again referring to time. This is body repair or body transmogrification over time, okay? That's the subset of this process here that from which this subset developed. All right, this one actually comes from a lineage this way. This goes down this way because their intent is slightly different, right? Now, here's our problem. Being in the modern world here, we find ourselves in a highly polluted environment, and we take on all of these kind of pollutions. So in my opinion, it's going to be very difficult for us to pursue any of these more pure approaches to things because our bodies are so tainted with aluminum and microplastics and all this kind of stuff that it's going to be difficult to get the purity of vibration that is necessary to achieve these kind of states. Now, on top of that though, okay, so these process here, the death of deaths and the body transmogrification, meaning turn inside out, rebuild from the inside out, right? Not merely transform or make young again or whatever, but like truly renew. This one here, they want you to renew by, and both of them involve systematic preparation, poisoning, and then propagation. Now, here's the kind of cool part, okay? This shit's well documented in all these ancient yogic and other esoteric texts. So you can find all this information out there, especially if you know how to use good AI, right? And you can have it do a lot of the searching for you, report these results, and you can do some of the correlation. And I'm using it for a different purpose because I already knew where to find a lot of this information, having been in yoga since I was like 10 years old. And getting into it in Europe during the period of time right after the reshuffling of all of the displaced people from World War II. Okay, so there were a lot of Hindus, there were a lot of Turks, Egyptians, all different kinds of people in Germany at the time I was there. So there were all of these other cultural influences basically at the level I operated at, right? I knew Turkish street vendors that I could talk yoga with, you know? So anyway, you get these just incredible Turkish halva sweets, just sesame seeds, honey, and all different kinds of cool stuff. Anyway, so these processes here are what subsets of these I'm using to rebuild my body. It's not easy. It's very tedious. You have to know what you're doing. You have to time it. You have to be aware of it on a day by day basis. You have to live in the now mostly all the time. And you have to experience what's going on all the time. And it can be quite tedious, right? In the actual processes themselves, you take poisons. The idea of this is the ultimate in detox. But the poisons are not like broad, crude poisons. These are elegant, brewed poisons to kill off specific parts of your body, specific systemic or specific systems at specific times in the whole process. And you have to go through these months of preparation, you go through a poisoning, and then you go into the propagation. If we look at it in modern terms, what they're doing is they're using like radiation or chemotherapy. They're using like chemotherapy to kill off a particular class of cells throughout your body in order that you could do repropagation of those cells with a whole new crew. And in that sense, they're trying to encourage stem cell growth and stem cell repopulation in specific systems as you go forward. The knowledge that they have is considerable, deep, even though the way they're expressing it is not as we express it now. But we have AI. So what I've been doing is, and I have, you would not believe the warehouse full of material I have here, okay? And this is part of the problem once you get into this. This whole thing here, in either of them, the death of deaths or the body transmogrification, you should have seclusion, you should have the proper preparation, and you should have guidance, okay? This is in both in the Hindu as well as up into the Japanese side of these things in the ancient past. A person going through this would have at least two people that had already gone through it themselves in order to be guides, and that was one of the conditions. So this all stems from the end of time secret society, okay, which has no membership role. It's the goofiest kind of secret society there is. I came across it through the Japanese Association, through martial arts, and then I found it later in the world, greater world of Hindu mysticism. But anyway, so the goal of all of this. All right, so let me back up a bit, because there's many different goals in the whole process here, okay? But the way that all of this works is a systematic destruction of the body in order to rebuild the body. I had had that systematic destruction of my body due to the cancer, so I knew about this process and decided it was worth the risks. There are a great deal of risks in here because even after the cancer stuff, had to take specific poisons in order to trigger this shit off, right? That's part of the problem here. We now have AI that can go through and get the preparation aspects here. We don't have guides. That's why I'm saying you need guidance. You need somebody who's been through the process. Usually you have two, if not three or more. And they guide you through 6 or 8 months. You're supposed to, when you join this society and you go through this process, they stick you into a hut. You're there for anywhere from 6 months to maybe 18 months, depending on how your body is and so on. But you commit to doing a session for someone else as a result of having survived it. A lot of people don't. The death rate on this, most of the people showing up for this are near death anyway, because otherwise what would motivate them to something this extreme, right? Consistently taking poisons, bring you right close to the edge and then fighting your way back, all of that kind of shit. So anyway, so we don't have that structure anymore. It still exists in some places, in Japan and also in India. Okay, but I don't have benefit of it. So what I'm doing, and I died in 2018. They threw me back from being dead. The other parts of my greater being out there in the woo said, no, you got work to do. Here you go, and they chucked me back. And I was in a miserable state. I decided, and I knew the space aliens were coming, so I decided I had to get fit so that I could participate in a meaningful way with this and not just be some, shrunken down guy in a wheelchair kind of thing, right? Okay, so I knew about the process existing, and I got into it in a serious way. I came on down and saw the level of preparation, and I started acquiring all of this stuff, and I ended up with this warehouse full of, you would not believe how many different kinds and so forth of supplements and herbs and so on, right? Because this is very, very, very lengthy and very detailed, but there's all these different elements of risk that come into it. So we have a formula. The formula says that if you take this particular poison, it'll kill off you have to do it in a particular way, right? So basically, because you're doing massive detox, you've got to guard your liver. You've got to keep guarding your liver continuously throughout this entire process. So the very first thing you do is you build your liver up, and then you've got to keep guarding it because it's going to be in control of all of the chemical processes and so on that go through your body. But what this whole thing is intended to do, especially with the poisons, is to trigger particular kinds of pathways. So they'll get a lot of near-dead cells to die off, and you'll lose a lot of weight very rapidly and so so on. And then at some different point, you take another kind of a poison and, vast quantities of your skin slough off. That's why they stick you into a hut with no windows or anything at that point, and sheets and sheets and sheets of cloth over the door, because you lose the protection of the eyelids in terms of for UV light and so on. It's an excruciating process to go through this thing, full on. Supposedly it's worth it if you survive it, and I say not many do. We don't know how many actually end up doing this, but there's the consistent rumors, and there's the histories of some people that have done it, and some people in the esoteric community have written about it in their own journals, and some of these other people like Gurdjieff and some of the more intense mystic kind of people read about it and discussed it or discovered it, right? Not that they practiced it, but they were aware that these kind of things were going on, because people would write about their experiences in doing this. And as I say, it's not an easy kind of a process. But now, from our current knowledge, we know that you want to systemically kill off, or you want to kill off specific systems in an orderly fashion. But before you do that, you want to have preparations in your body to deal with the poison that you're going to be taking at a particular point in the poisoning process, such that it stops. So there's all of that kind of stuff. And then you want to have preparations already ongoing in your body for the rebuild process, such that those can be used right at that point. And a lot of this is all, now we know, all involved with particular biological, biochemical pathways. And so, we can systematize it even further, much more so than reading about the formula and the preparations within these various different sources. Some of which are like yogic manuals. They're really straightforward. Others are hymns, that kind of thing, right? Anyway, now though, we also have the cross-checking ability of AI, because we can get these formulas and we can run the list of herbs and so forth through the